This is my little setup preamble, making sure everything is working correctly. There it is. All right, let's see if my my sound is coming through correctly. Hello? Yeah, it is. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. This is John from Incendium RPGs, and today we get the biggest Unearthed Arcana yet, in the form of the Player's Handbook Playtest Packet 5. So, as with most of our Unearthed Arcana, we've gotten a few videos with Jeremy Crawford and Todd Kenrick explaining some of the content we're getting today. I highly recommend checking out those videos. I'm going to be referencing them throughout our analysis today. Like the Druid and Paladin UA, this is going to be a live reaction. And even unlike that, I have seen none of the content. This is going to be my pure reaction, gut impression of what the content is like. I'm sure after the major rules analyzers like Pack Tactics and Treant Monk get their teeth into it, there's going to be a lot other mechanical insights we'll get from them that'll help kind of shape our view and therefore help us provide better feedback in the form of the feedback surveys for this content. But yeah, so before really kind of like scrolling through the document and stuff, just to summarize some of the kind of higher view things that Jeremy Crawford mentioned, we've got overall design goals for this packet, which include supporting the flavor text from the 2014 Player's Handbook with mechanics that make sense. So some examples that Jeremy Crawford mentioned were the sorcerer in the 2014 text had all this flavor about, there's all this powerful magic roiling inside you that can create unexpected results. And really, though, mechanically, the only subclass that really allowed the sorcerer to have these unexpected results was the wild magic sorcerer. So one of the mechanical ways that he teased that the sorcerer is going to have this feeling of kind of randomness is through a new cantrip called Sorcerous Burst, pretty sure is what he called it, which includes an exploding die mechanic. Wizards now being more planners, their mechanics, I think, did a pretty good job differentiating them between the sorcerers as improvisers and the wizards as planners, but now they've got a new mechanic for creating spells, like the named spells we had in the 2014 Player's Handbook, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Bigby's Hand, all that stuff. Another design goal was to create a satisfying level progression that established your character's playstyle as early as possible. This is something I have personally been championing. Ironic, because champion is one of the things we'll get to see for a while. Like, one of the things that I really don't like with D&D is that you may get certain builds that quote-unquote come online at certain levels, whereas for me, I want my character concept to come online as early as possible. And so far, with the new background first level feat system and the way some of the classes have been redesigned, I think that they've been getting closer and closer to that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they refine that design goal with today's playtest. An example of that was that, like with the cleric, the subclasses for Warlock and Sorcerer have been pushed back from first level to third level, but Warlocks get their Pact Boon right at first level, so they can kind of define their playstyle a little more, either as a kind of hybrid spellcasting martial character like Pact of the Blade, or leaning into their spellcasting with Pact of the Tome, for example. Another thing is that they wanted to give Warlock and Sorcerer a more distinct mechanical identity. This was an interesting thing for him to bring up, and again, something I've been advocating for a long time now. Sorcerer is generally well liked in terms of its flavor and story, But in terms of its distinct mechanical identity, Warlock is pretty much Eldritch Blast. That is its spellcasting identity. As opposed to, like Druid, Cleric, and Wizard all feel very different. They have very different spells and very different functions that they play in a party's composition. So one of the design goals, and like I alluded to earlier with the new Sorcerer cantrip, is to make Warlock and Sorcerer feel unique from Wizard, rather than just borrowing from different spell lists and stuff. So, and the last big thing is, of course, and I think this is the thing most people are excited about, are quality of life improvements. So one of the things Jeremy Crawford teased, and I'll see how they do it when I actually look at the PDF, is that Eldritch Blast is now free to Warlocks, as well as the Hex spell. So the design team, and most of the community, if I'm going to be honest, look at the Eldritch Blast Hex combo as being part of Warlock's defining kit. Other examples they brought up were the Remarkable Athlete feature from Champion. They knew for years that that's like a not so good feature, so they've replaced it with something more useful. The Frenzy mechanic from Berserker Barbarian is another thing that they're looking to adjust for quality of life improvements. So overall, that's not only our like the mechanical power balance, health of this UA. I'm going to be taking a lot of those into account. I also want to see how well they meet their design goals. So without further ado, let's dive into it. This is a 50-page monster, and I might have to take a break in the middle of it. We'll see how they go. By the way, hello Ian. I do see that you are here. So let's dive into this together. So so what's going to be new in this UA? The biggest thing is the weapon mastery system. More spells. I know Hex did get an adjustment. That was one that Jeremy Crawford shouted out. We now have every base class except the Monk, which actually isn't that surprising, I guess, because we got the Cleric as a standalone UA, so the Monk, which probably needs the most adjustments of all of the 12 core classes from the 2014 PHB. It makes sense they need to spend a little more time figuring that one out. And of course, we're getting a rules glossary update. One thing I'll say right off the bat is one of the things that is getting tough to playtest this stuff with is the fact that all of the UAs are all over the place. And I understand why they wouldn't want to like reprint some of the stuff, but having the playtest be a cumulative doc would be really helpful. So I don't know if they included the old 1st and 4th level feats in here, but in terms of playtesting 1D&D character, I'm sorry, 5th edition characters for this playtest. It's getting to be unwieldy, having to look at the character origins UA and then have to figure out, like, look at the expert classes UA for your 4th level feats. And then if you're building a priest class, like looking at the druid and paladin or the cleric UA, it's just, it's getting to be a lot. So even if just the feats are like compiled, that would go a long way into helping remove some pain of actually playtesting this material. So the first thing, weapons. This section contains playtest versions of weapons. Oh, they're starting right off with it. You'll find weapon tables, revised weapon properties, a new type of property, mastery properties, which will be unlocked with the weapon mastery feat, which is something that's available to all characters. I think barbarians and fighters get it as is, but like if you want to play a ranger, you can pick up weapon mastery as a feat to unlock the mastery properties. So design notes. Wonderful. So short sword is now a martial weapon again. My guess is that they tried to slim down too much. Like, one of the things they did is make short sword simple weapons, and then for the bard class, for instance, rather than having specific weapon proficiencies, they just said all simple weapons, which meant that bards also lost their rapier proficiency. and that was something I did not agree with. So, the net doesn't deal damage is adventuring gear rather than a weapon. That makes sense. The trident is now a D8, D10 versatile weapon, which makes sense. What was funny about the trident in 2014, in case nobody paid attention, was it had the exact same properties as a spear, except it was a martial weapon instead of a simple weapon. But there was no reason to ever take a trident because it was the same as a spear. And even Mike Merles talked about the entire thing about tridents having the thrown property was a joke from Anchorman that they made canon in their game system. I guess it's a fantasy game for a reason. The lance has the heavy and two-handed property, and its damage die has changed from a D12 to a D10. All right. And the war pick is now versatile. Excuse me. The musket and pistol now appear in the martial weapons ranged table. As always, the DM oversees what is available for purchase in shops. The light property is in the weapons property rather than the glossary. Thrown property allows you to draw a weapon as part of the ranged attack. Thank goodness, because that was always something that was very mechanically clunky in 2014, and they had to create a whole thrown weapon fighting style in order to figure out how to do that. It was like a whole thing. So anyway, let's take a look at, so you see some of these mastery properties like slow, nick, push, vex, sap. Yeah, you have a mace and it has tree sap on it. Shows you. So yeah, the weapons are a little bit more distinct now. And so like, why would you pick a light crossbow instead of a short bow? Well, not only does it lack the loading property, but the light crossbow has the slow mastery as opposed to the vex mastery. And the martial weapons now have some interesting things. So they have topple and cleave. I know some of my players are going to be like, cleave is canon. I've been letting cleave happen for in my home game for a little while. But yeah, all right. So let's actually take a look. Vex is the one that I'm kind of interested in. Because I think that's the one that I haven't really heard anything about. But, all right. So let's take a look. Let me look at chat. All right. So the light property, I don't know if it's changed as much as it's just been rearranged, but when you take the attack action and attack with a light weapon, you can make an extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn. Whoa, wait, they changed it back to a bonus action? And you can make one extra attack as a bonus action. For example, if you take the attack action on your turn and have the short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, you can make one attack with each weapon using your action and a bonus action. Yeah, they changed the light weapon property back to a bonus action. Is that a mistake? Because originally what they did is they just made it an extra attack in combination with your other stuff, and that was like a good fix. Because there was so much competition for your bonus action, this feels like a mistake. This feels like someone copied and pasted the wrong draft. Oh, cool. Awesome. Thank you, Ian, for also putting this on Twitch. Super helpful. But, yeah. What's up with that? Boo! Alright, so thrown. If a weapon has the thrown property, you can throw a weapon to make a ranged attack, and you can draw that weapon as part of the attack. A positive change. If the weapon is a melee weapon, you can use the same ability modifier, or you use the same ability modifier for that attack roll. So if you have a hand axe, you use strength. If you throw a dagger, it can be either. Alright. So next are mastery properties. So yeah, why would they change light back to a bonus action? That is what's vexing me. So the mastery properties can only be unlocked with a character that has the weapon mastery feature. The two classes that have it, as far as the playtest is concerned, is the fighter and the barbarian. So Cleave has a melee weapon with a heavy property. Now, what you might be wondering is, why does it have a prerequisite if the weapon it's already here as one of the weapon properties is like Cleave is under Great Axe? The reason is, I believe, is Greatsword still 2d6? Yes, it is. Okay. So the reason is because I think Jeremy Crawford teased that fighters in particular can customize their weapon mastery properties. So that's something that the fighter can do that not everybody can do. So if you want like your greatsword to be able to cleave instead of to graze, that's something you have. Look at Nick. I'll get there. Don't you worry, Christopher Taylor. So if you hit a creature with a melee attack using this weapon, you can make an attack roll with the weapon against a second creature, which I think is different than the Dungeon Master's Guide. In the DMG, I believe it was just if that attack roll would also hit the second creature, it like you do more damage. You do like the leftover damage. So it's a second attack roll. On a hit, the second creature takes the weapon's damage, but don't add your ability modifier. So it's kind of like the 2-weapon fighting. But you get like a bonus attack to make. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. Cool. All right, so flex. Oh, I see Nick. We'll get there. When you hit with a melee attack using the weapon, you deal its versatile damage if you're wielding it with one hand. Okay. So Jeremy Crawford made a big deal. Like, as he was in the overview video, and he was going over, like, you got cleave, and you've got, like, graze. He was like, but, like, for sword and boards, like, they can use the versatile property with one hand. And the thing I want to point out is, among damage boosts, versatile is terrible. Like, at most, you're talking on average a 1-point damage difference. So, like, if you use the Warhammer and you use the flex property, like, yeah, you can deal an extra point of damage. It's one of those things where the math of the game doesn't really support that as a better option, as I'm sure some of the other things have. So, graze. If your attack roll misses a creature, you can deal damage to that creature equal to the ability modifier you use to make the attack roll. So, I guess, so like if you have got a greatsword and you're attacking and you have a +4 strength, you deal the 4 damage even if you miss. So, I don't really know the math on that. It's better than flex, but yeah, I don't know how. I have to actually see it in play, and I have to see the math broken down by someone who's better at looking at the math than I am. But the fact, I guess if you can, I guess it's better to deal 4 damage than no damage at all. And I could definitely, especially if you can stack multiple mastery properties on the same weapon, like cleave is way better. I would take cleave over graze, but if I get cleave and graze, then maybe. And actually, that would be interesting, because with cleave, you get to make 2 attacks. So if you miss with one of those attacks, you still get to graze them. So that could be interesting. All right, Nick. When you make the extra attack of the light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of a bonus. Oh, I get it. Yeah. Yeah, and cleave is automatically on Great Axe for that property. Okay, so they made it a mastery property. So if you're an untrained character, say like I don't know, like a wizard or something, you're gonna have to use your bonus action to do it. But the mastery property being the Nick. Okay, all right. I don't. Okay. I feel very Michael Scott like right now. Yeah, okay. I can see how that would... But still, now Rangers have to give up part of their class progression. They'd have to give up one of their feats in order to get the Nick property. or rogues, whereas that was just part of their kit to begin with. So Jeremy Crawford did tease that they would be going over the ranger and the rogue again. I would love to see at least the classes that they say where 2-weapon fighting is an iconic part of that class's fantasy. I would like them to get the Nick property for free or whatever. I'm not sure. The more I talk it out, the less I like this as one of the mastery properties, and the more I liked it just as one of the 2-weapon fighting properties. But I want to know what you think. Do you disagree with me? Because I am definitely swayable at the moment. So push. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can push the creature 10 feet. With no save. Everybody gets Repelling Blast. Sap. If you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. Alright, so these are the ones where it's like, alright, flex. 1 extra point of damage. Sap, disadvantage on your next attack roll before the start of your next turn. That's nasty. And it's got no prerequisite. You can put that on, and you can put that on your greatsword. That's pretty gross. All right, so slow. This is like if you were to hit someone with a crossbow as opposed to a short bow. So if you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, reduce its speed by 10. If you hit the creature more than once with this property, the speed reduction doesn't exceed 10 feet. Okay, so there's like a limit to how slow you can make them. The one thing I'll say, just like labeling wise, is slow, I believe, is a condition, and it's also a spell. So while I think it is an appropriate label for this weapon mastery property in isolation, I think if you put the same game term in way too many things, I think it can be confusing for some players. So it's just something, I don't know what you would put in place of it, but yeah, it's something to consider. Yeah. So, I guess that's true, only if they want to use 2-weapon fighting. I don't know, maybe they'll change my mind later on in the thing. But, alright, so, Ian, can you, if you're also mirroring this on Twitch, if there are Twitch chats, can you just put them in this YouTube one for me so I can kind of keep track of what's going on? Actually, if you could, Ian, just label it like Twitch and then what the comment is so I can address it. That'd be very helpful. So, topple. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can force the creature to make a con save. Imagine that, a saving throw. On a failed save, they have the prone condition. That's the winner. Sap and topple. Vex. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. Whoa! That's better than slow. Yeah, especially if you pop that on a rogue to just allow them to give themselves advantage. That's pretty nasty. I like that. Now, the one thing I think that's kind of interesting, and I don't think this is actually unbalanced, because there is a widely recognized power gap between spellcasters and marshals. Topple is not something where you can only do it once per turn. So something like the fighter, whose one of their classic, distinctive chassis mechanics was more than 2 extra attacks, it would make sense that the fighter with the weapon mastery can hit the same target 3 or 4 times, even more potentially with an action surge. So over time, they can just keep the creature making save after save in order to topple them. And there's not a restriction on it. It's not proficiency bonus number of times. So I'm digging it. And those are all the weapon mastery properties. I think it's a great start. I think some of them could use a little bit of refinement. I'm always one that likes more, theoretically, but Yeah, as a set, if this were what the player's handbook would be, you know, besides, I think, Flex, I'm not, and Nick. I think if Nick, I think that the, excuse me, how Rangers and Rogues are built, if Nick is a little easier to get for them. I understand the fact that characters that specialize in two-weapon fighting should be able to fight easier than a character that does not specialize in two-weapon fighting. So yeah, all right. Cool. All right. So adventuring gear. So now we have the net. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with a throw of the net. I don't know why that wording makes me laugh. Your target must succeed a dex save. The target succeeds automatically if it's huge or larger. That means you just need a big net. On a failed save, the target has the restrained condition. Yeah, so obviously you'd want to coordinate it, but I don't think you'd want it to throw the net and then have it wait. I think you'd want to time it so that you throw the net and then your archers pin them from a distance. And then the net has its classic, you know, few hit points, low AC. It's easy to get out of it. But still, that is a restriction on its action economy. I've never really used a net, actually, in my character builds, but this is a great time to bring attention to it, I think. All right. Oh, we get spells first. Yeah, they're doing this very differently. Yeah, I was actually gonna... My expectation was that it would be organized like usual, you know, class, spells, rules glossary. But actually, and one of the things I was like, I'm gonna like look at like Warlock, and then I'm gonna see that the spells changed. So I have to scroll down. But no, we get to see how the things are changed first. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. It's pollen season where I live. So there's definitely been some coughing that's happened. All right. So, design update. Vicious Mockery and Dissonant Whispers are available to the Bard, but have been removed from the Arcane list. I'm actually a proponent of that. One of the things Jeremy Crawford talked about is classes having specialized spells. So there are things that sorcerers have access to that, like, not every class has access to. Let me be frank. I like the spell lists. I think this is a great idea. I don't think they're a replacement for class-specific spells, but I do like the idea of having a consolidated list that if your game system has an OGO or released a Creative Commons, that when you create third-party content, it can easily plug into this this greater list that ends up getting added on to over time. So, I don't know. I think they would have told us if anything got added. But yeah, that's the Arcane list. New spells. 11 new spells. Each one connected to a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard feature. So Chaos Bolt is now going to be standard. It was originally from Xanathar's. Eldritch Blast scales only with warlock level. Thank goodness. But it's still a spell. It is not just a class feature, which is an interesting. So it could be counterspelled, I guess. And Hex can deal its extra damage only once per turn. And all warlocks get it as a bonus spell. So let's actually do this in like level order to the best of my ability. So Book of Shadows is a conjuration cantrip. It takes an hour to cast. Stitching together strands of shadow, you conjure forth a book in your hand. Contains eldritch magic. So when the book appears, choose 2 cantrips and choose 2 first-level spells that have the ritual tag. Oh, so originally Tome of Shadows, you just got 3 cantrips just from any class or whatever. But you could upgrade it later with an Eldritch Invocation to give it some ritual spells. So it's interesting that not only do you get 2 cantrips, you get 2 ritual spells. The spells can be from the Arcane, Divine, and Primal spell lists, and they must be spells you don't have already prepared. While the book is on your person, you have the chosen spells prepared, and you can use the book as a spellcasting focus. But you can cast it again. For an hour, you can switch out your rituals and your cantrips. Wow, that's fairly powerful. When you reach 5th level as a warlock, this spell also enhances other cantrips. You can add your warlock spellcasting ability modifier to the damage rolls of any cantrip you cast that doesn't already have that modifier added. Wow. Yeah, so if you want to double down as the spellcasting type warlock, you know, Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Thorn Whip, any of the damaging cantrips, you can... It's now like putting the Agonizing Blast, but on anything. And notice it says Warlock spellcasting modifier. It's been teased. Warlocks can pick between intelligence and charisma. I wonder who thought of that idea. Yeah, so Dissonant Whispers was never a warlock spell. It was an expanded spell from Great Old One Patron. So it was never tied specifically to the warlock. It was more of a bard spell that other subclasses could pick up. Aberrant Mind Sorcerer was another one that could pick up Dissonant Whispers. And I think if they revisit Great Old One as one of the subclasses for warlock, I think that those warlocks will just have it. So we're not really losing anything. If anything, it's making the bard a little more distinct from, say, a wizard that could just pick up Dissonant Whispers, or sorcerers if they use the arcane spell list. So, all right, hold on. I think we got Eldritch Blast is all right, here we go. Eldritch Blast, evocation cantrip, warlock. So the spell creates more than one beam when you reach higher warlock levels. 2 beams at 5th, 3 beams at 11th, 4 beams at 17th. Make a separate attack roll for each beam. Yup, that's about right. Water break. Alright. I'm fine with it. Now it makes me want to take more than 2 levels of warlock. And then there was another cantrip that he mentioned. One more. Pact Familiar is a conjuration cantrip. So yeah, instead of it being a class feature, they've made these spells, which is kind of interesting, because I wonder if like other classes could start to pick them up with certain features without having to multi-class. So all right, so this is a familiar spell, right? It's a Pact Familiar. You summon an unearthly entity. It uses the stat block. It can be an aberration, celestial, dragon, fae. Oh, dragon. Fae, fiend, undead. It affects the default appearance as noted in the parentheses, and it determines certain traits. Notice it says default appearance. They're big on being able to change cosmetics. Again, something I advocate for. But, it's a familiar in combat. It follows the rules of familiars, apparently. But it's not a first level spell like Find Familiar is. It's something that you can do over and over again without a cost, and that's interesting. Starting at 5th level as a warlock, you can communicate telepathically with your familiar as long as you're on the same plane of existence, which is different because I think Find Familiar, there's like a range, like it's like 200 or 500 feet or something. Additionally, while perceiving through your familiar senses, you can also speak through your familiar in your own voice. It's just better. Excuse me. All right, so a 40-foot fly speed that can hover, you say. 120-foot telepathy. Eldritch Strike, as opposed to otherworldly Scratch. And it can turn invisible. This is a cantrip, people. Impact Weapon is a cantrip. It still takes an action. When you attack with this weapon, you use your spellcasting modifier. So everyone for a while has said Hexblade is overpowered, and I agreed. But now it makes sense that just that feature is rolled into Pact Weapon. If you want to be an Eldritch fighter, all you need is one level of Warlock, and you can take the Pact Weapon. It also has the returning property, which is pretty neat. So actually, I almost see like Thor more as like a Pact of the Blade Warlock than I do just like a Paladin, like how I used to see him. If the weapon has the thrown property, the weapon returns to your hand immediately. Oh, I already said that. Nice. And then at 5th level, you gain extra attack. You don't have to take an invocation, you just get it. Man, I'm pretty impressed so far with just how Warlock is coming along. And these are, to use my own words, healthy adjustments. I really like these improvements. I think they're clear. I think they're better organized. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are going to dip Warlock for that feature. Do I care? Not particularly. I think that, kind of like the weapon mastery is locked behind either a feat or class levels of fighter. Oh! Yeah, if a ranger or rogue would want the Nick property, all they'd have to do is multi-class a level into fighter. Yeah, that's not so bad, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I still think it's I think it's dumb to get the iconic... Alright, now I take that back. I think if you want an iconic part of a class's fantasy, it should be able to be in that class. I used to hate Scout Rogue for the same reason. I love the Scout Rogue mechanics. I like playing them, but I didn't like the fact that to have an expertise in nature and survival, I basically had to go outside of the ranger class to feel like a ranger. In the same way, I don't like that you'd have to multi-class level into fighter to get the Nick weapon mastery. But in terms of my original point for Warlock is that I like that for Warlock, by sticking with Warlock, you get extra stuff. But you can dip your toes into Warlock to get some stuff. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know why I'm okay with it, but I am. And that's what I'm going to stick to for right now. So is it a little unbalanced? Are people going to dip a lot for it? Yeah. Am I going to dip a lot for it? Yeah. But am I bothered by that? People were dipping for Hexblade Warlock to begin with. So I don't know. You might as well, if they're going to do that, you might as well make it a little easier for them. But Sorcerous Burst. So this is the new Sorcerer cantrip. So make a ranged attack that deals 1d6 damage, which is very poor cantrip damage. But if you roll a 6 on a d6, you can roll another d6. So yes, it's more damage, but you're gambling that it could do more damage. The maximum number of these d6s you can add to the spell's damage equals your spell casting ability modifier. So if you're starting with a +3 charisma, and that means you could get 3 more d6s, because it's whenever the maximum number of d6s you can add to the spell's damage, the original damage being the d6. So you could start out the gate, if you're lucky enough, getting 4d6 damage. It's not terrible. You choose the damage type each time you cast this spell. Wow, acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. What I'm excited to see from the monster design is how they play with damage types. From the Druid Paladin UA, there was some speculation that one of the Paladin features is like you can swap out the weapon damage for radiant damage. And so there's been speculation that they're going to like revise the whole like resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, slashing, piercing and damage types can matter more. I would love to see that kind of thing. And I think it would give the Sorcerer a unique place in the class canon of being able to switch between damage types uniquely. And it would make things like the Way of Dragon Monk from Fizzbands make a lot more sense. Like, to me, that was kind of a weird one because it's like, it sounds cool, but functionally it like doesn't really matter in the way that 5th edition was played. So, and of course this scales up, so it gets more d6s as you go. So those are the cantrips. I have gotten tired trying to search through and do these in order, so now I'm just going to do them alphabetically. I am changing my mind just like a sorcerer. So, that's interesting. Yeah, balanced, no. Healthy, maybe. I think that game health sometimes is making unbalanced choices. I don't, yeah. So, yeah, the whole, should Eldritch Blast just be a class feature as opposed to a cantrip? I don't know. That's what I was expecting. It does mean that it can be picked up by other classes, but also Eldritch Invocations, I believe, was a feat, or it was a feat from Tasha's. So maybe there's a weird build you could do by picking up Eldritch Blast without committing to Warlock levels that still allows some kind of play. I don't know. I think that would have been this. I think just making it a class feature rather than a cantrip would have been a simpler solution. I would like to hear their thought process on it. Are we going to get it? So Arcane Eruption is a sorcerer-specific spell. Churning magical energy explodes in a 20-foot radius sphere. Oh, so it's like a 4th level fireball. Select the damage type. Again, psychic getting added into that mix. Very cool. Each creature in the sphere must make a con save. On a failed save, 66 damage of the chosen type. As much as on a successful save, a creature takes half as much damage. Choose one of those d6s. The number rolled on that die determines a condition that's applied to each creature that failed the save. Incapacitated. Whoa. It's not as powerful as a fireball, but man, I don't really have a lot of 4th level spells that it's like when I hit 7th level on a full caster, I'm never like, yes, 4th level spells. But man, is that fun. Just getting to see randomly which condition you get to add. Con saves are often made by bosses and the like, but whew. That's pretty fun. Alright, so Book of Shadows, Chaos Bolt. On a target, the target takes 2d8 plus 1d6. Choose a d8. That's the damage type. If you roll the same number on both d8s, chaotic energy leaps to a different creature within 30 feet, so it kind of chains. A creature can be targeted only once by each casting of this spell. That's pretty neat. Oh, actually, Memorize Spell, I think, is based off of... or Create Spell is based off of Memorize Spell. So, we're gonna skip around again. Alright, Hex. You place a curse on a creature that you can see within range until the spell ends, I'm sorry. You can deal 1d6 extra necrotic damage when you hit it with an attack roll once per turn. Also, choose one of the 6 abilities. When you cast the spell, they have disadvantage on ability checks. When I first played this game, I thought that also included saving throws, and so did my DM. So Hex was way too powerful. If the target drops to 0 hit points before the spell ends, you can use a bonus action to put it on a different creature. And a remove curse spell ends the spell early. So, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 3rd or 4th level, You can maintain your concentration for up to 8 hours, and the spell's damage increases to 2d6. That's different. When you use 5th level or higher, it increases to 3d6 damage. Would I ever advise using a 4th or 5th level or a 3rd, 4th, or 5th level hex? You got better things to do with your spell slots, person. All right, so Memorize Spell is a wizard ritual. You choose a spell from your spellbook you don't have prepared, and you choose another spell you do have prepared. The unprepared spell replaces the prepared spell. The replacement lasts until you cast Memorize Spell again or finish a long rest. Some interesting pivoting you could do. I'm about it. Modify Spell, not Memorize Spell. So Modify Spell is another wizard ritual that, using arcane formulas, you magically alter an arcane spell. So you can change the spell's color, sound, smell, and you make one of the following modifications. So you can remove a component. So like verbal verbal would be, that's how you get around a silence spell. Concentration, if the spell requires concentration, damage can't break concentration. Wow, nice. That's another exciting 4th level thing. Damage type, range, ritual. Oh, so they're basically, these are largely like meta magic options, and this is what Jeremy Crawford meant by the wizard is the planner, the sorcerer is the improviser. The wizard with enough time can modify these spells. The sorcerer has an expendable resource it has to spend in order to modify its spells. If the spell lacks the ritual tag, they get it and target. Oh, could you imagine ritual casting fireballs to like break down a door? You just over and over again take 10 minutes. Boom, boom. That is pretty interesting. Excuse me. Yeah, all right. So Modify Spell. All right. So now we're going back to Create Spell, which, again, there are several spells that exist in the game that were created. Melf's Acid Arrow. Is it Melf? That was created by Luke Gygax because he wanted to hit a sorcerer in the back row with his player character. So his character created that spell, and it still exists in the game. So, it's a reaction in response to yourself casting Modify Spell. And it's concentration up to an hour. So synthesizing your arcane knowledge and power to succeed, you create a new spell, you have to concentrate for 1 hour and meditate on the spell you just altered. If you succeed, you must start casting Scribe Spell within the next 10 minutes and add the altered spell to your spellbook. Once the spell is in your book, it becomes one of your known spells. It gains the wizard source tag rather than the arcane tag, and it gains a name of your choice. So you basically get to keep the modified spell as part of your spell book. It does cost at least 1,000 GP per level of the spell. So there are ways built into this where your DM can limit how many new spells you can create. Theoretically, if you have just like tons and tons of gold, you can create this huge contingency of lots of different modified spells that you have access to. You'd still have to prepare them based on what I see from Memorize Spell, but still, as the planning character, this is pretty potent. It's kind of cool. Jeremy Crawford did mention there will continue to be spells like how to create your own spells kind of advice in the new Dungeon Master's Guide, but this is a way for the wizard to feel unique from other spellcasters by being able to do it themselves, by being able to look ahead of time. So that's pretty neat. All right. Oh, Scribe Spell is referenced by Create Spell. So, this actually, I think this is going to give you mechanics to making spell scrolls. So you scribe an arcane spell in your spell book or a blank book worth at least 50 GP. The scribe spell must be of a level for which you have. Could you imagine like stealing like I don't know, like a first edition copy of like a famous play, like the draft by the original author, and just start scribbling your spells all over again. It's worth at least 50 gold. That's kind of that's like such a weird, like, I get it from a game balance perspective, but just the world building implications of just any book worth 50 GP. Oh no, it's a book. I misread that. I thought it was a book worth 50 GP. It's just a book. Or a blank book. Oh, it has to be a blank. The scribe spell must be a level for which you have spell slots, and the book must lack the spell. Okay. You can copy it from another spell book or a spell scroll, or you must have it prepared. If you copy it from a spell scroll, that's destroyed. If you have the spell prepared, the casting time and components are halved. Jim Davis talked about this years ago on WebDM, and I think it was when Explorer's Guide to Wildmount came out. The idea of spells as treasure. So let's say you're playing a game, and the only spells that you allow in your game are the player's handbook spells. Now you get something like Wildmount or Ravnica, and they add spells to the game. The only way your character can learn it is by discovering a spell scroll of that spell and then destroying it with scribe spell and then putting it in your book. So your character has a unique spell that nobody else has. I think that this is a great mechanical way to facilitate that kind of storytelling. So maybe your character as a wizard is like an archaeologist, and the reason they're plundering into ancient ruins or whatever is to find like lost spells written on scrolls. But maybe if they get into a really bad situation, kind of like Final Fantasy II, actually, they have the option of unleashing the spell's full power by opening the scroll, but then they lose the scroll and they lose the ability to keep the spell. So it's just kind of an interesting thought experiment of, ways that this little mechanic can really facilitate some excellent storytelling at your table. So, all right. Sorcerer's Vitality. Last one. 3rd level Abjuration. Oh, and then Sorcery Incarnate. Okay, so more sorcery. So 3rd level spell slot to regain 2d6 plus spellcasting ability modifier. Ooh. And if you have one of the following conditions, they end on you: blinded, deafened, poisoned. Oh, that's not bad for a non-healing class to get an alright heal. Alright. And then Sorcery Incarnate, so it's a bonus action. You regain 1d4 sorcery points. You can use up to 2 meta magics on the spells you cast, and you have advantage on the attack rolls of every spell you cast. Oh, that's pretty neat. It's like a power-up sequence. I always like those in D&D. Bonus action, transformation sequence, whether you're an Aasimar or you're using the Guardian of Nature spell as a druid, or the Paladin capstones where you would be like, I don't know, embody your oath. I always found those kind of bonus action transformations neat. So, yeah. I don't know if it's worth a 5th level spell slot. I think it depends on the kind of combat you're in and what meta magic you have, but again, I will leave that to other rules lawyers to discuss. So, feats. We have more epic boon feats. We want them to be more epic, is what they keep saying. I am kind of not a fan of the epic boon replacing a 20th level class feature to begin with, but I digress. Alright, so dimensional travel. Immediately after you take the attack action or the magic action, you can teleport. Oh, that's actually really good. Imagine that. Energy resistance. You gain resistance to 2 of the following damage types. Whenever you finish a long rest, meditate and change those choices. And you also get to redirect. So when you take damage of a type which you have resistance to, you can use your reaction to direct damage of the same type toward another creature you can see within 60 feet that isn't behind total cover. They have to make a dex save. or take 2d12 plus your Constitution modifier. That's not bad. That's pretty neat. 2d12 isn't amazing damage, and it does cost your reaction, but hey, 2 free damage types, damage type resistances isn't terrible. Irresistible offense. Increase strength or dex by 1 up to a max of 30. Oh, and I guess also post 20th level, just adding on more and more epic boons is a way that your characters can continue leveling, if you're interested in that kind of epic level play. Bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage always ignores resistance. When you roll a 20 on the d20 for an attack, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to the ability score increased by this feat. Oh, so if you increase, like, let's say your dex is a 21, when you crit, you deal an extra 21 damage. Wow, that's not bad. Yeah. If it says the ability score, not the ability score modifier. That's pretty significant. Like an extra 20. I mean, like Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter added 10 damage to a roll, so getting to add 20. I mean, it's only on a crit, but it's nothing to sneeze at, I don't think. With the redirection thing, yeah. That is like a capstone ability, but still, that's pretty cool. All right, Epic Boon of Recovery. So, last stand, when you be reduced to 0, drop to 1 instead, and regain a number of hit points equal to half your maximum. That's neat. When you take damage while you have 0 hit points, you can make a death save instead of suffering a death save failure. Oh, yeah, so you get to kind of like still live. That's pretty... Yikes. Alright. Epic Boon of Speed. As a bonus action, you can disengage, which also ends the grappled and restrained conditions on you, and your speed increases by 30. That's pretty significant. Speed boosts, I think, are largely underrated, in terms of how people view mechanics. So, that's a cool one. Epic Boon of the Night Spirit. So, while entirely within dim light or darkness, you can become invisible with a magic action. The condition ends on you immediately after you take an action, bonus action, or a reaction. Okay. While within dim light or darkness, you also have resistance to all damage except force, psychic, and radiant. That's kind of neat. All right. Now, Weapon Master is you have to be at least 4th prerequisite, 4th plus level. Wait, what? 4th plus level? Is that? I think it's supposed to say 4th level. Yeah, because 4th plus level means I need 4th plus my level. But I'm not, my level, the prerequisite will always be 4 levels above my level. Oh no, I think it's supposed to just say 4th. So increase your strength dex by 1 to a max of 20. And then, yeah, you gain the mastery property of weapon you're proficient with. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how exciting I'm not sure I would use a feat for... Well, okay, let me take that back. Which ones have topple? So, if I go to Longsword... Yeah, see, Longsword has the flex property. Rapier has the vex property, though, and that was my favorite one. So, I think... Yeah, if I was playing a rogue, I might take the vex property. Oh, no, it's got to be advantage on your next attack roll, and rogues only get the 1 attack. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would take the weapon mastery feat on anything that's not... Oh, maybe I'd take it on a warlock because, you know, they have that new Pact of the Blade cantrip at 1st level. So, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I want to be more excited about the weapon master as a feat. But to me, it just makes more sense to put on the 2 warrior groups classes that it's already on. So I don't know. All right. So barbarians, there's flavor. You guys know what barbarians are. It has multiple weapon masteries as it gets higher in level though. So that's pretty significant. Yeah, I think it's supposed to say 4th level or higher, Ian, but the way it was written was like 4th plus level. I don't know. Whereas the others would say 20th level or whatever. I don't know. So let's look at the design notes. So rage can be extended with a bonus action. Taking damage doesn't extend it, but forcing someone to make a saving throw does. The focus is now on what you do, not on what's done to you. Also, the playtest rage can last for 10 minutes rather than 1. Finally, rage is stopped by the incapacitated condition. I didn't realize it was not stopped by the incapacitated condition before. Weapon mastery is a new 1st level feature, giving you new ways to use weapons. Primal knowledge is a new 2nd level feature that unlocks a non-combat functionality for rage. It's kind of interesting. There was a primal knowledge kind of feature in Tasha's at 3rd level. Danger sense has been merged with feral instincts. Indomitable might has been moved from 18th level to 9th. Brutal critical has been moved back to 11th, but its extra damage has been increased and scales with level. That's been a criticism of brutal critical, is it kind of looks good to a lot of players on paper, where it's like, oh, well, when I crit, I get an extra thing. But critical hits don't actually change DPR as much as people think. I recommend that you find a DPR calculator online and just play with what the crits do. It is kind of interesting. Like, I remember taking crits away from Eldritch Blast like took away maybe 1 or 2 points of damage. So when everyone was like, oh my goodness, they took crits away from spells, like, it didn't actually do as much as people thought it did. But still, part of the game's health isn't the hard math, it's also the feeling, like the excitement of being able to crit. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what they've done with that. Persistent Rage has been moved up earlier. Relentless Rage has been moved back, and rather than restoring you to 1 hit point, it restores a number of hit points equal to twice your Barbarian level, which is 30, it looks like. And remember, part of Rage is that it gives resistances, so depending on what kind of opponent you're up against, Relentless, those 30 hit points could potentially functionally act as 60 hit points. Rage Resurgence is a new 17th level feature that restores a use of rage whenever you roll initiative. Because of this, the Barbarian doesn't get unlimited uses of rage at 20th. Apparently that was broken for anyone who would actually stick with Barbarian till 20th. Primal Champion has been moved from 20th to 18th, and its increase was changed from 4 to 2. Alright. And I think that would be, like, I'd be more outraged about it if the epic boons also weren't doing functionally a similar thing. Yeah, so epic boon raises that score's maximum to 30. Okay. So, creating a barbarian. So, a lot of this stuff looks similar. Yeah, the saving throws, skills, weapons, armor training. Excuse me. Oh, that's interesting. So barbarians used great axe as the starting equipment used to be the default, but now they do change it to battle axe or shield. So the multi-classing proficiencies is just shields and martial weapons. So that's interesting. I don't think there's gonna be a class that isn't proficient with simple weapons anymore. Druid, right? Yeah, Druid and Wizard used to have like these big, long weapon proficiency lists because they weren't proficient with all simple weapons. But I think that they're kind of streamlining a lot of it, so it's a lot less to write down when you build a character. All right, so Rage, they've kept the resistance to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. When you make an attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike using strength, you gain a bonus to damage. Is that damage bump the same as it's always been? Rage damage. Yes, from a quick glance, this looks similar to what it was. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saves, and you can't maintain concentration, and you can't cast spells. All right. Rage lasts until the end of your next turn, and it ends early if you don heavy armor or have the incapacitated condition. If your rage is still active on your next turn, you can extend the rage for another round. By doing one or more of the following. So, okay, so it starts with, it just lasts until the end of your next turn. Which means you've got one turn to do something. You can either use a bonus action to extend it, make an attack roll against an enemy, or force an enemy to make a saving throw. So it used to be that if you could either attack an enemy, or if you got hit, that would also allow your rage to keep going. But like they had said earlier in their design notes, this is more about what you do, not what you not what's done to you. So that's an interesting way to think about it. So, unarmored defense looks the same. I've always kind of liked unarmored defense. Weapon mastery, your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of two kinds of simple or martial melee weapons of your choice, and they have to be melee weapons. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and change the kinds of melee weapons you chose. When you gain certain levels, you can use more kinds of mastery properties. So what was hand axe? I didn't actually take a look at that, but that is kind of iconic to how at least I build. Oh, it had the Vex property. That's pretty neat. So you could like throw a hand axe and then come in with the great axe and have advantage with the great axe attack and then cleave into a, wow. So that's a pretty significant bump, I think. But yeah, it lets you be a little creative with it. All right. Oh, I went too far. So, anything else? No, rage, unarmored defense, weapon mastery. Okay. Primal knowledge. You gain proficiency in another skill of your choice from the list of skills available to barbarians at first level. In addition, while your rage is active, you can channel primal power when you attempt certain tasks. When you make an ability check using one of the following skills, you can make it as a strength check even if it normally uses a different ability. Acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, survival. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if... So, I haven't played Pathfinder 2e yet. I finally got the game scheduled. I'm going to be doing a huge review of Pathfinder and my thoughts on the system. In my initial research, a lot of what Pathfinder is praised for is how many different options you can have mid-combat. So rather than just attack a bunch of times, you can trip an enemy, demoralize them. I wonder if this is kind of a similar design direction where they're like, maybe there's something you can do with intimidation that's a little bit different than just attacking as a barbarian. So, but you also don't have to worry about, like, putting too much into charisma, since now you can sub-strength for it. Also, one of my favorite rules out of I think it's in the player's handbook, is swapping different ability scores for skills. So, For example, making strength intimidation checks instead of charisma intimidation checks. That's something I've used successfully in my games for a really long time. And it's always worked well, both in terms of mechanics and role-playing. So I like that design is being honored here. Also, it's kind of interesting just to think about a strength perception or a strength survival check. Anyway, when you use this ability, your strength represents primal power coursing through and around you. All right. Reckless. You can throw aside all concern for defense. So you have advantage on attack rolls using strength, but attack rolls against you have advantage. I think that's the same. Okay, so we've got the Berserker is going to be the default subclass that they play with. Extra attack and fast movement, these are all the same. And wow, they really don't want you wearing heavy armor as a barbarian. That's cool. Oh, hello, Rowan. I see we're getting raided. What up? So, Feral Instinct. This is getting combined with something else. Danger Sense is pushed back to 7th level. I thought there was something missing. I'm a little bummed, but I'm okay with it. My latest build for my Monster Hunter character, Solomon, took 3 levels of Barbarian because Danger Sense is something you can get at level 2, so making a high dex character, being able to dip into some Barbarian has made them like super strong. So I'm okay with it. You have advantage on initiative rolls and dex saves. I think that this discourages like kind of funky builds that are... I think this evens out the power curve of multi-classed martial characters versus single-classed martial characters. So while there are some things like I don't like how Rogue's evasion was pushed back from 7th level to 9th level, I am surprisingly okay with Danger Sense being pushed back to 7th level. So, Indomitable Might. If your total for a strength check is less than your score, use your score in place of the total. That used to be I think they mentioned they moved it earlier, but as a 9th level character, you reasonably have a strength score of 20. That's pretty neat. Surprisingly okay by that. Brutal Critical is moved back. When you score a crit, the target takes extra damage equal to your Barbarian level. Again, like I mentioned with the Epic boon, that's more significant. So your Barbarian level is 11, so they're taking 10 extra. So they took away the power attack feats of, -5 to the roll to get +10 for the damage. They've kind of added them in, but only to crits and later in the progression with more damage. So, I think a lot of people overestimate how much crits matter in terms of their character's DPR, which is why I'm not super excited that the first fighter subclass we got was Champion. And again, people do love their crits. They make for good stories and memories. So, I think that this is a more appropriate fit that ultimately I think will end up scaling better, even though it's only 1 extra point per level. Persistent Rage, it lasts for 10 minutes without you needing to do anything to extend it. Was it only 1 minute before? No, it was only until your next turn before. It wasn't even a minute. So that's kind of nice. Relentless Rage. This one got pushed back, I think. I remember. Your rage can keep you fighting despite grievous wounds. If you drop to 0 and don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 con save. And this is where you get up to, like, at 15th level, you get 30 hit points back. Each time you use this feature after the DC increases by 5, and when you finish a short or long rest, so you only have to take a nap, and it resets to 10. Pretty sweet. This is the rage resurgence so that they could justify not having unlimited rages. strength and con increased by 2, and their maximum is now 22. And then the epic boon. Oh, it's like specific. Like, I don't remember if this was in Druid and Paladin, but choosing strength or con, that they both increase by 2, and their maximum is now 30, in addition to the epic boon feat, which will also give you an ability score increase from what it looks like. So yeah. All right, Path of the Berserker. So, again, design notes. Who would have thought? So, Frenzy no longer causes you to gain a level of exhaustion. In addition, it causes you to deal extra damage each round that you use Reckless Attack, instead of giving you a bonus action, which conflicts with the Rage's use of a bonus action. Smart. Mindless Rage ends Charmed and Frightened on you rather than merely suspending them. Retaliation has moved from 14th to 10th, and Intimidating Presence has moved from 10th to 14th and has been improved. It affects a group of creatures rather than one. Alright, so Berserker, commonly regarded as like one of the worst barbarian subclasses. The penalty of accruing exhaustion to only be able to attack an extra time as a bonus action was not a good trade-off. Now, with Frenzy, if you use Reckless Attack while raging, you deal extra damage to the first target you hit on your turn with a strength-based attack. Roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. So, yeah, that, an extra 2d6, it's kind of like sneak attack. To the first so just to the first target that you recklessly attack, you deal for a while an extra 2d6. It doesn't scale as nicely, I don't think, as sneak attack, but it is a little easier to activate, and it is self-sufficient. So, some trades. Mindless Rage, you have immunity to Charmed and Frightened while Rage is active. If you are Charmed or Frightened when you enter your range, that condition ends. Nice. When you take damage from a creature that's within 5 feet, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack against that creature. That's pretty nice. There are different ways to use your reaction, and what's potentially broken about Retaliation now is the weapon mastery properties. I don't think they have to be on your turn. Let me just double check that. So let's go back to Topple. If you hit a creature with this weapon. So yeah, if you've got something that can topple or vex, and as a reaction you can topple them, that's pretty neat. So yeah, I mean, Retaliation actually is better not because of Retaliation. It's better because of Weapon Mastery. So it's a neat idea of seeing how the systems can be used together. And then Intimidating Presence. As an action, each creature of your choice within 30 feet, or 60 if your rage is active, and if your rage is active, you can also use strength instead of charisma. Must make a wisdom save. On a failed save, they're frightened for a minute. And they can repeat the save. Hold on. Once you use this feature, you can only use it once per long rest. If you've run out of uses, you can expend a use of your rage, choosing not to activate the rage, and activate Intimidating Presence instead. I don't know if I'd ever do that, but, I mean, I guess the option is nice. Better to have the option than not. Okay. Fighter. Before looking at this. Fighter is a class design I have criticized for a while. Prior to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, my chief criticism of Fighter is that the chassis wasn't strong. What the chassis allowed for was strong. So fighter was strong because you could get a lot of feats. You could get, crossbow expert and sharpshooter and great weapon master and all of these sentinel and polearm master. Like, if you had a variant human fighter from just the 2014 Player's Handbook, you could start with a glaive, sentinel and polearm master from level 1. So fighter wasn't powerful. What fighter could do with feats was powerful. And that always bothered me because another class could also just pick up those feats. So its big identity was based in this other system. So the other thing I didn't like about fighter was that its damage was dictated by the magic items that your DM would give you. In a lot of campaigns, including a lot of earlier games that I played, the DM would just kind of give you stuff, and if that wasn't part of your character's vision, it was kind of like, oh well. So for example, let's go back to that polearm master fighter. Maybe the DM gives you a flame tongue sword, and it's like, well, I built my character for polearms, but because your polearms weren't magical, as soon as you started hitting like CR 5 and 6 monsters, there was a good chance that your damage would just drop off. So you were forced to use the thing that your DM would give you, which then kind of conflicted with the image that you had of your character. So not only were fighters dependent on the feat system, fighters were also dependent on the magic items that your DM was willing to give you in relation to the monsters that they were having you fight. In a large part, that's what I think contributes to the power gap between spellcasters and marshals. Spellcasters are self-sufficient. They can prepare their own spells. They can switch out spells with different damage types. They have access to these huge spells like Wall of Force, Fear, Hypnotic Pattern that have a huge impact on the game, whereas martial characters have to ask their DM permission to get the weapons that allow them to function, and if they're just thrown into a bad situation, they don't have a great way to pivot. I'm very interested to see what they've done with the fighter. I will say I maintain that criticism for Barbarian, although I will say one of the benefits of the weapon mastery system is, especially with the slow or topple or push, even if your character isn't going to do damage, they can still impact meaningfully the tactics of combat. So I could see how a barbarian raging, they may not do a lot of damage with their great axe, but depending on how you've done the weapon mastery stuff, maybe they have a weapon they can use to topple with or something. I don't know. So that's my kind of 2 cents going into this. Let's see what they've done with it though. So persuasion has been added to the class's list of skills, with an eye on the fantasy archetype of persuasive warriors that lead others. Second Wind can now be used more than once between long rests without requiring a short rest. Weapon Mastery is a new first level feature. Action Surge is limited to certain fighter themed actions. Hallelujah! That was one thing I also didn't bring up is, alright, so the way Eldritch Blast originally scaled with just total character level, I tried, honestly, to play a single-class Warlock in a campaign. I got up to level 7, and I told my DM I'm not having fun. When I go to cast spells, the only spell that seems to work well is Eldritch Blast, and I can't even quicken it. So my DM thankfully allowed me to rebuild into a Sorcerer Warlock build. Since then, I've never seen a better use of Warlock than the first 2 levels to give me, Agonizing Blast and Eldritch Blast. Looking at the new excuse me, the simple change of Eldritch Blast now scaling specifically with Warlock level, to me, that already made it so oh well, this is why I would stick with Warlock. Action Surge was the same thing for fighters. The best use I saw of fighters was to take 2 levels of fighter to Action Surge multiple spells together. So now, just the idea that it's finally limited to certain fighter-themed actions, thank goodness. Weapon Expert is a new 7th level feature. Maybe I think that's the one where you can start switching around the mastery properties. Indomitable gives you a bonus to the reroll equal to your fighter level. Weapon Adept is a new 13th level feature. I'm gonna... Oh, bye, excuse me. Oh, if any of you have noticed, I'm in a different room than I usually live stream from. I'm actually at my parents' house because my house is being cleaned right now, and there's a lot of vacuuming noises, and I didn't want that interrupting the stream. It's very dusty, probably why I'm coughing so much, too, in addition to the pollen. So, Weapon Adept is a new 13th level feature. Improved Action Surge has moved from 17th to 15th. Unconquerable is a new 17th level feature that incorporates extra use functionality. Actually, back when we did the DM Shower Thoughts podcast, Ian and I had we were the third co-host, Adamus from Adamus Drake Productions. And one of the things that he was interested in was looking at extra use functionality as part of Indomitable. So it's interesting to see a design that's kind of familiar from a third-party creator come back into the the kind of quote-unquote official fold of 5th edition. 3 extra attacks has been moved from 20th to 18th. Neat. And Epic Boon is a new 20th level feature. Oh, it's going to be the same. All right. So fighter, anything change? Saving throws are the same. I think it'd be interesting to allow fighters to choose between con and dex saving throws. That's just me. Persuasion has been added to the skill list, like they said. God, it's so nice for them to add those design notes. It's so... That way you don't miss anything. You get chainmail, light crossbow, great sword, or long sword and shield. So yeah, it is. They are kind of picking for you what your default weapon should kind of look like. But again, you could also just forego it and spend the money on equipment of your choice. And I like how it's a static value. I don't know if I've mentioned this before in a previous analysis, but it used to be in the 2014, if you didn't take the starting equipment, you'd have to roll for your gold, and that could lead to making a pretty ineffective character. It happened to me a few times. So I like that, fighter, starting equipment, or this solid amount of gold that you get to spend. So, first, you get fighting style. Excuse me. It's either defense or a fighting style of your choice. Second wind. So the bonus action is still 1d10 plus fighter level. You can use it when you reach certain fighter levels. You gain more uses. Oh, second wind. Oh, and they get more weapon masteries than the barbarian, if you didn't notice that. I wonder if you multi-class one level of fighter and one level of barbarian, if now you have 5 weapon masteries. Does that say that in the... Yeah, it's just a class feature, so it doesn't... it's like cantrips, where I think you just get a bunch of them. I don't know why you'd want 5 weapon masteries, but I guess it's something. But yeah, you end up getting, by 4th level, you can second wind a few times. Second wind, I think, is an often overlooked class feature. I don't think it's great, but it is something kind of distinct to the fighter. So, yeah, so then you get weapon mastery. All right. Action surge time. On your turn, you can take 1 additional action. Attack, dash, disengage, dodge. Oh, that's interesting. You can take the dodge action, too, as an action surge. And then it recharges on short or long rests. So, then the usual, they get... Oh! So, fighters used to get an extra feat at 6th level, but because that's when you get your subclass, they moved it to 5th. So, yeah, 5th level fighter actually used to almost feel like a dead level. Because, 5th level monk, not that monk is a great design class, but it would have extra attack and, what was the other thing? Stunning strike. Barbarians, extra attack, fast movement. Paladins would get extra attack and additional spells to use. Same with Ranger. So I like that they get a feat along with extra attack at 5th level, that they moved it down. I'm very interested in that. All right, 7th level. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose one of the kinds of mastery properties you are using and replace its mastery property with another mastery property. The chosen kind of weapon must qualify for the new property. For example, you could replace the longsword's flex property with the push property, as you probably should. So, Indomitable, I think, is what it always was. When you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. Oh, wow. That's much better than just re-rolling it. 11th level is 2 extra attacks. Then a feat. You're a master of weapons. In case you didn't get that from Weapon Mastery. Excuse me. I almost wonder if they should switch the names of that. Weapon Adept. So you have the Adept property. Weapon Mastery is the Fighter 13th level property. When you use your Weapon Expert feature on a kind of weapon, you can give that kind of weapon 2 properties rather than 1. But you then use only 1 property at a time. So it gives you some versatility. Whenever you make an attack roll against a target with that kind of weapon, you decide which of the 2 properties applies to that attack. Oh, so you can't do the graze. You can't do like the graze and cleave thing like I said earlier. That's just not how it works. So, okay. Topple. Did Topple have any prerequisites? Because that's the one to me that I think is like the best. Oh, it has to be heavy, reach, or versatile. But slow has no prerequisites. Or sap. Yeah. Okay. This is getting kind of exciting, everybody. All right. So, fighter. Back to fighter. I'm kind of all over the place. You can use action search twice, now at 15th level instead of 17th. Unconquerable. When you're in great peril, you can tap into a deep well of resilience. If you fail a save and your Indomitable feature is expended, you can use it again by expending a use of Second Wind, which also heals you. Whoa. That's cool. And then 3 extra attacks, and then Epic Boon. So, champion updates. Adaptable Victor is a new 3rd level feature, giving the champion new non-combat utility. Remarkable Athlete is terrible, so it's been replaced by Adaptable Victor and Heroic Warrior. Additional fighting style has been moved from 10th to 6th. Heroic Warrior is a new 6th level feature. Survivor has been enhanced. Okay, so 3rd level. You've studied your friends and foes alike. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can gain proficiency in 1 skill from those available to this class at 1st level, as you remind yourself of past lessons. This proficiency lasts until the end of your next long rest. Your attack rolls with weapons and unarmed strikes can score a critical on 19 or 20. That's not new. Oh, so yeah, you just get a bonus skill proficiency at 3rd level. That's kind of neat. You gain another fighting style of your choice at 6th, and you also, once per combat, can give yourself heroic advantage if you start your turn without it. Oh, that's kind of neat. Again, would go well with a rogue multi-class. That's pretty cool. So, superior crit. Now you crit on an 18 to 20 at 10th level. That is a much more useful time to actually get it. And then Survivor, which is the 14th level instead of like 18th level or what it was. You have advantage on death saves. when you roll an 18 to 20 on a death save, you gain the benefits of rolling a 20 instead. That is much, much better than just the, if you have under half your HP, you can heal a little bit. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus con mod if you have no more than half your hit points left. That's kind of the lame thing. But yeah, the defying death is definitely better. All right, so we are about halfway through this this little UA live stream. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it for a little bit. We're going to take a look at the new mages in just a little bit, but I need a bathroom break. So I'm going to pause the stream here, and I'll be back in like 5 to 10 minutes ish, depending on, So yeah, I'll see you guys in just a little bit. Hello, welcome back, everybody. So, we are getting into the mage classes here. Just gotta make sure all my chat is ready to go. So, I know Jeremy Crawford, in his longer video with Todd Kenrick relating to this Unearthed Arcana, he actually started by talking about Warlock and Sorcerer, even though Barbarian and Warrior were the first things that we talked about in this. Oh, by the way, after reading Fighter, again, I think the only concern that hasn't been addressed but may be addressed later is their relationship to damage types. I think Weapon Mastery will go a long way in having those two classes feel a little more tactical and a little more interesting. The one thing I don't want to see is, like, you hit 5th level, everything's got resistance to slashing, bludgeoning, piercing damage. So their damage falls off because of that. I hope that this kind of bridges the gap, but again, I kind of have to wait until I see the, more mechanically minded content creators sink their teeth into it, and then we'll have a better idea. So the Sorcerer, part of its story was more about this, like, explosive magic that it had about it. And that wasn't really conveyed well in the older mechanics. Even the Wild Magic Sorcerer, which had a random element, just wasn't super well designed. It used a lot of what Jeremy Crawford called Mother May I mechanics of, like, can I please roll on the Wild Magic Surge table? So, the design updates. Innate Sorcery is a new first level feature, giving 2 sorcerer-only spells that represent the roiling magic within. The other new sorcerer features in this playtest emphasize the sorcerer's ability to tap into their innate magic to create extraordinary things, as opposed to pulling magic from, like, the divine or the arcane or primal, the, like, nature. So spellcasting gives more spells to the sorcerer over the life of the character, now capping at 22 rather than 15, a much needed quality of life update. This was one of the most requested changes to the class. Font of Magic now has a sorcerer level prerequisite for creating each spell slot. Oh, that's interesting. You could, like, create higher level spell slots. That's kind of interesting. I never even thought of that. Meta Magic has been moved from 3rd to 2nd level, which makes sense. The feature also gives you 3 meta magic options instead of 2, and you get 3 more at 13th level. So, again, establishing the class's playstyle earlier instead of having to make you wait for it. So I think that's pretty interesting. So Sorceress Vitality is a new 5th level feature, and I think that also is like the Sorceress Vitality spell. It's the same thing. Sorcery Incarnate, which was that 5th level spell that I think is cool, but I'm not sure how effective it is. Sorceress Restoration has been moved to 15th level, and it now also restores some sorcery points when you roll initiative. Arcane Apotheosis is the one Jeremy Crawford was super excited about. We'll see what happens there. So, let's take a look. Alright, still D6 hit points. I'm not seeing a whole lot of change in terms of your stuff. The multi-classing is the same. As a sorcerer, you gain the following class features. So Innate Sorcery is where you get Sorceress Burst and Chaos Bolt, both which, if you're gonna pick a sorcerer, these are really fun spells. I've seen Chaos Bolt be used at the table. I've played games with exploding die mechanics. I have a feeling these are gonna be this is an awesome addition. What back on the class list? How many? they still start with 4 so you're starting with 5 cantrips because you automatically get Sorceress Burst. And I mean, depending on what you want to do, I don't know if I'd take Firebolt because Sorceress Burst just lets you do that. I guess I would take the tactical options, like maybe Shocking Grasp or Ray of Frost to reduce speed, but that is definitely going to change how I view those 4 cantrips you get from Sorcerer. And yeah, they have a much more even, like, the amount of spells that you can prepare. It's a much more even, gaining, much more even accumulation. I think that's what I'm looking for. So spellcasting, whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace a cantrip with another arcane cantrip. When you reach 4th and 10th, you learn another cantrip. Here it is again. Prepared spells of 1st plus level. Oh, it's alright. They're trying to say 1st level or higher. So the 4th plus level. It's just letting you know that at 4th is when you can. Is the minimum level you need to get weapon mastery. Okay. Glad we could close that loop. So prepared spells, I think it's just how everything else works. You have a number of prepared you have a number of prepared spells though. I'm not sure if that was the same. Wait a minute. Hold on. You prepare the list of spells of 1st level and higher that are available for you to cast with this feature. To start, choose 2 1st level spells. The number of spells on your list also increases as you gain sorcerer levels. Whenever that number increases, choose additional spells from the arcane spell list until the number of spells on your list matches the number on the table. The chosen spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots. For example, if you are a 3rd level sorcerer, your list of prepared spells can include 6 arcane of 1st level or 2nd in any combination. One of my biggest criticisms of the 1D&D playtest so far was with Bard and Cleric and Ranger. The number of spell slots equaled the number of spells you could prepare. So let's take a 5th level Cleric, for example. They have 4 1st level spell slots, 3 2nd level spell slots, 2 3rd level spell slots, and that means when you would prepare your spells, you would have to prepare 4 1st level spells, 3 2nd level spells, so on, so on. I hated that. I love being able to have a whole bunch of 1st level spells and maybe 1 or 2 2nd level spells, or vice versa, or whatever combination. I like this a lot better than the other system, especially with classes like Druid. I liked my Druid being able to have different combinations. Much better to go back to the way it was done before. If another sorcerer feature gives you innate innate sorcery gives spells, you always have prepared. Those spells don't count against the number on the table. Whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace 1 spell on your list with another arcane spell for which you have spell slots. Charisma is your spellcasting modifier. You use an arcane focus as a spellcasting focus. So Font of Magic is what gives you your sorcery points. I don't know why it has to be a separate feature than Meta Magic. I feel like these two can be wrapped into each other. As you gain higher levels, it's in the sorcery point column. Don't your sorcery points just equal your level? Yeah, why don't they just say your sorcery points equals your level? Whatever. You can convert your sorcery points to spell slots. You can convert your spell slots to sorcery points. That flexible casting thing is still there. Meta Magic is presented later. This is going to be one of the big ones. All right. Sorceress Vitality is the feature we talked about earlier. Arcane Eruption, which I also really liked. It's pretty powerful, but it's pretty funny. And then Sorceress Restoration. You regain 4 sorcery points when you roll initiative. Arcane Apotheosis. You are now so suffused with magic that you can alter reality. You always have the Wish spell prepared. And if you undergo the spell's casting stress, you have no chance of losing the ability to cast the spell. In addition, you can cast Wish to replicate a spell of 1st through 8th level without expending a 9th level slot. You instead expend a slot of the replicated spell's level. Once you use Wish, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Holy crap. I don't even know what I think about that. That's pretty significant. Wish is a spell I don't see in my games a lot, mostly because I don't play at a high level, but that's like a way cooler epic boon than the epic boons. And it's gained at a level where you can actually use it. Yeah. I can see this being both awesome and awful. Like, I can see this ruining a campaign, just letting someone just feel like they can keep casting Wish. But Wish is also one of those spells that's gonna, like, ruin the experience. It doesn't matter who's got it. I like the, you just basically, do you have any spell between 1st and 8th level? We'll use it. That's pretty neat. Yeah, it basically, as a sorcerer, you can just do anything at 18th level. And I don't think I'm opposed to it because they kind of tend to be squishy to begin with only a d6 hit die. I mean, yeah, they've got Arcana as like a secondary ability score recommendation, but... Ian, are you watching this, my dude? Like... Wow. Alright. Let's take a look at some meta magic. Alright. Alright, so Careful Spell now prevents an affected creature from taking half damage. Distance Spell increases a spell's range based on sorcerer level rather than doubling. For most spells, this increases in a greater increase than before. Okay. Extended, it's easier to maintain concentration. Heightened Spell now costs 2 sorcery points rather than 3, and it imposes disadvantage on all the target saves. Oh, alright. Quickened is the one... Alright. I have done a lot of builds, and I've seen a lot of builds, where, let's say it's like a Sorkadin. So you take 6 levels of Paladin, and then you take 14 levels of Sorcerer. Quickened Spell is like... I don't know. It always felt a little too powerful because, let's say you're a high-level Sorkadin. You know, you've got your 2 attacks, smiting on both attacks, and then you can quicken like a big fireball or something. It always never really quite... It felt way more powerful than I think what their intention was. So I'm interested. That's the one I'm kind of interested in. So Seeking Spell is now just core instead of just being from Tasha's. Subtle Spell removes the need for material components, in addition to the verbal and somatic component. Transmuted Spell has been imported, so I think that lets you switch damage types. Twin Spell has been redesigned. The 2014 version was too powerful, as in Quicken Spell. Yeah, and to cast the extra spell with a sorcery point discount, the targeting limitation failed to contain how overpowered the option was and caused confusion. The new version of Twin Spell keeps the sorcery point discount with Quicken Spell, carrying the extra spell on a turn weight. This redesign has allowed us to remove the targeting limitation. Okay, let's see what they did. Arcane Apotheosis has already blown my mind, even though I'm never going to see it at the table because I don't play D&D at that high a level. But still, let's see what happens. All right. Careful Spell. When you cast a spell that forces other creatures to make a save, you can protect some of those creatures from the spell's full force. So, your allies. Spend a sorcery point. Choose a number of those creatures up to your charisma modifier. Chosen creature automatically succeeds on its save. Excuse me. Chosen creature automatically succeeds on its save, and it takes no damage if it would normally take half damage. So it's kind of like sculpting the spell around them. That's neat. Wow. All right, Distance Spell. When you cast a spell that has a range of at least 5 feet, you can spend one sorcery point to increase the spell's range by a number of feet equal to 30 times your sorcerer level. Okay. When you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make the range of the spell 30 feet. When you Empowered Spell is when you roll damage for a spell, spend a sorcery point to reroll a number of the damage dice. That one's still not very good. The whole re-rolling bad dice thing is it's not really gonna, on average, like statistically give you so much more. I think it's worth the sorcery point. Extended Spell. You can spend a sorcery point to double the duration of a spell that has a duration of a minute or longer, if the spell requires concentration. That was a sorcery feature, right? Or was it the Incarnate? You have advantage on everything. I thought there was a thing here where, like, you could just be like, nah. Oh, modify spell. That was a wizard thing. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to sorcerer. Let's go back to meta magic. Okay, so heightened spell. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a save to resist its effects, you can spend 2 sorcery points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on its saving throws. Wait, I thought they said everything. Heightened. It imposes disadvantage on all the target's saves, rather than only the first save. On its saving throws. Oh, so it's one target, but there are some spells that will have multiple saving throws, so they have disadvantage on all of the saving throws. Quickened, which is no longer... I don't know. Let's see what happens with this. When you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change it to a bonus action. You can't modify a spell in this way if you've already cast a spell of first level or higher on the current turn. Nor can you cast a spell of first level or higher on the turn after modifying a spell this way. So, yeah. Yeah, man, I think they just cleared up the language. I think Quicken Spell is still... it's the one... I just feel like now what I'm going to want to do is just, like, build a bard and only take 2 levels of sorcerer. But then you only get the 2 sorcery points. But you can always bonus action make more sorcery points with your spell slots. I don't know. Yeah. You can't modify a spell in this way if you've already cast a spell of first level or higher. Yeah. Alright, they didn't really fix Quicken Spell for me. Guess can't get everything that you want, but still. It's a pretty... I don't know. The way that they're, like, adjusting the other spells, I think is... maybe it'll help. Anyway, Seeking Spell. If you make an attack roll for a spell and miss. You can spend 2 sorcery points to reroll the d20 and must use the new roll. You can use Seeking Spell even if you have already used a different meta magic option. Alright. Subtle Spell, you can spend a sorcery point to cast it without any verbal, somatic, or material components except material components that are consumed by the spell. Transmuted is you spend a sorcery point to change the damage type. And then Twinned is 1 to 5 sorcery points when you cast a spell of 1st through 5th level that you also cast on your previous turn by expending a spell slot. You can fuel this turn's casting of the spell. Oh, you had to have casted it on your previous turn. You substitute the spell slot with sorcery points. Oh, that's interesting, but you also can't do that with concentration spells because you would just be creating a new instance of the spell that you're concentrating on. So, like, you can't twin haste somebody. Not that I'd recommend doing that anyway, but yeah, because you can't concentrate on both instances of haste. So, there are some spells I could see that working well for. Oh, but also, I see. So you can, yeah, you could also do something like, say, Fireball. Then you go to the twin spell and you cast Fireball again. And they said Quicken Spell would take on the load of doing more than 1 spell per turn. Okay, so, and you'd have to be, like, the one thing with Quicken Spell that you have to be very careful about is if you use your action to cast a spell of 1st level or higher, you then can't quicken a cantrip because of the very specific dumb way that bonus action spells are written. So, for example, you can't, let's use a Firebolt. Fireball, no, that's going to get confusing. All right, let's say Fireball and Ray of Frost. Fireball is a 3rd level spell. Ray of Frost is a cantrip. You cannot use your action to cast Fireball and then quicken Ray of Frost. You can quicken Fireball and use Ray of Frost. So it's, like, so dumb how, like, you use the same amount of actions, the same things happen, but the order, like, what you have as the bonus action or not, it, like, allows you to do some things and not others. I don't know. I've always been very dissatisfied with that design of Quicken Spell. Honestly, I just want Quicken Spell written out of the game. I think that the spells that are quick and are bonus actions make sense to be bonus actions, and it would clear up this whole, like, you know, well, was the cantrip the action or the bonus action or the... I don't like Quicken Spell. That's my hot take for the day, so feel free to @ me in the comments. Alright, so now we're moving on to the Draconic Sorcery, which used to be the Draconic Bloodline. Okay, so now this is just a new naming convention. Draconic Resilience now gives a base AC that is 10 plus Dex and Charisma modifier. Yeah! Wow, I actually am excited to play a Draconic Sorcerer again. Dragon Speech now lets you communicate with any creature with the Dragon type. And Elemental Affinity no longer charges a sorcery point for the resistance. In surveys, people have requested more uses for the damage type. The playtest version of Draconic Exhalation and Dragon Wings both respond to that request. Draconic Exhalation has replaced Draconic Presence, and Dragon Wings now modifies Sorcery Incarnate and includes a damage option. So, Draconic Resilience. Your hit point maximum increases by 3 and increases by 1 whenever you gain a sorcerer level. That's significant. That is... I know it's only 3, but if you're playing a 1st level character in a 1st level adventure, that's the difference between life or death, depending on what kind of CR creatures you're fighting at first level. Parts of you are also covered by dragon-like scales, just the cosmetics. So it's 10 plus Dex plus Charisma modifier. Dragon speech, your speech is understood by all creatures of the dragon type, and you understand their communication. So at 6th level now, choose one of these 5 damage types associated with dragons. You have resistance to that damage type, and when you cast a spell that deals damage of that type, add your charisma modifier to 1 damage roll. Not bad. Okay, once per turn when you cast Sorceress Burst, you can exhale it as a 15-foot cone rather than selecting a target. To cast the spell in this way, you choose your elemental affinity, and you make separate attack and damage rolls against each creature in the spell's cone, giving you more of a chance to have the die explode and, keep on rolling, and it's just fun to re-roll a bunch of things. This definitely is, this change to the sorcerer is, I think ultimately it's going to end up being more fun, whether it's balanced or not. Dragon Wings, which again is still at 14th level, so they just change the way subclasses work. Your innate magic can now manifest as spectral draconic wings on your back. While your sorcery incarnate is active, you sprout these wings, gain a fly speed equal to your speed, and can hover. In addition, at the end of your turns, you can flap these wings to unleash magical damage, dealing damage to each creature of your choice within 15 feet, equal to charisma modifier. All right, that's all right. Excuse me. Again, I think that this is overall a nerf. I will admit that depending on what kind of campaign I was playing, I didn't like just having my character sprout dragon wings and then just having them on at all times. I think it's neat that they're trying to integrate the sorcery incarnate spell by boosting it. Again, is it worth a 5th level spell slot? Especially if you're considering arcane spells like Wall of Force. I'm not sure I would agree with that, but I don't know. It's an interesting thought, and the damage I guess is nice, but I don't think it's necessary. I think the damage is too low. Okay. Oh, the primary ability is intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. This is gonna get spicy. So, warlock updates. Medium armor is now included in the class's armor training. So remember when we were like, oh, they're just gonna dip 1 level of warlock for that pact boon. You're gonna get mages that dip just for the medium armor, especially since you get to pick your your spell casting ability. But medium armor proficiency is I'm not sure how popular that's going to be, but that is a significant survivability bump. Pact Boon is now at 1st level. Eldritch Blast, Hex, and a spell of your choice. The cantrips we went over earlier, Chain, Tome, and Blade, are now exclusive to you. All of which are exclusive to Warlocks. So, Pact Magic has been replaced by Spellcasting. Called it! So, a few months ago now, I can actually look it up. I'm going to do that because I'm petty. Yes, 8 months ago, we released a video called Rant, The Biggest Problems with Warlock. In which case I said, one of the biggest problems with Warlock is the fact that my players aren't using any of their spells because their spells were terrible in comparison to just Eldritch Blasting. How do we fix this? Well, in one of my games, I said, instead of Pact Magic, treat it as spellcasting. You just get all of your spell slots, you just get all your things, and then players didn't feel like they had to conserve their spells as much. Oh, that's spicy. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think the idea of this is a positive change. Now, yeah, they basically get 15 spell slots instead of 4. Now, you may notice something about this list. Warlocks are now half casters. They used to get 5th level spell slots at 9th level, but because of this survivability bump, they're now seen as these half-casting hybrid martial casting characters like Ranger and Paladin. So, I'm not sure how well that's going to be received. I'm not necessarily against it, but I just think it's an interesting design direction, but ultimately I do like the change from Pact Magic was just one of those things where even if I was in a game with constant short rests, I noticed the player psychology is that the players did not want to use their spell slots, and largely not only was it because they only had 4 of them, it was because that they get back on short rest. It's that in a lot of cases Eldritch Blast was just a better option. So Eldritch Invocations cap out at 9 instead of 8. Yeah, so you might be getting more of them earlier too. I think I remember with Invocations, like you'd get a 3rd one, and then you'd have to wait. Oh, I can actually pull it up. Let me look that up. So Warlock 5e, which they're not going to bring up the 1D&D playtest because it's really dumb to call your new product the same thing as your old product. Hold on. Yeah, so in terms of the invocations, you wouldn't get... Where is it? Invocations known. You wouldn't get your 3rd one until 5th level, which looks like the same. But then you wouldn't get your... Oh, wait, maybe this is the same progression. Oh, yeah, I think this is the same. Well, no, you get the sixth one earlier. But yeah, you actually get the invocations. The invocations are slightly different. And maybe I'll see them more if I actually single class a Warlock now because I actually fixed it. Imagine that. Mystic Arcanum is an Eldritch Invocation option, which is now available as soon as 5th level. Previously, Warlocks waited until 11th to get it. Contact Patron is a new 11th level feature, allowing a Warlock to contact their patron directly. Hexmaster is an 18th level feature. Eldritch Master has been removed since it was based on Pact Magic. And, yeah, Epic Boon, whatever. So its proficiencies are locked in at Wisdom and Charisma. Multi-classing... You must have at least a 13 in one of the Warlock's primary abilities. They grant light and medium armor proficiency to if you multi-class into it, and then it is a half caster. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at Pact Boon. All right, you have formed a pact with an otherworldly entity. You always have Eldritch Blast and Hex prepared. To determine the identity of the entity and choose its plane of existence, such as the Feywild, Shadowfell, Outer Plane. Each boon gives you a choice for the spellcasting ability used by your spellcasting feature. And it gives you a pact spell that you always have prepared. So Pact of the Tome is Intelligence or Wisdom. Blade is Wisdom or Charisma, so it can't be Intelligence. No multi-classing wizards with it. Pact of the Chain is Intelligence or Charisma. All right. So yeah, you get to pick your spellcasting ability. If only someone had thought of that. We released a video about the major the little changes that I made to my games that made a big difference, and this was one of the things I said. So looking into spellcasting. Hello. Cantrips, so it wants you to start with Chill Touch and Prestidigitation. I'm not sure I would stick with that. And then spell slots show how many spell slots you can cast at first level or higher. And then again, it's back to prepared spells. Oh, so refreshing. I think I have a feeling they'll go back to Cleric, Ranger, and Druid, and Bard, and do this design again. But yeah, alright, Eldritch Invocations. You gain 2 invocations, which are later in the description. When you gain certain Warlock levels, you gain more invocations. Additionally, whenever you gain a Warlock level, you can choose one of the invocations and replace it with another invocation. Or, for example, Mystic Arcanum, you can replace the choice. That's significant because even with Tasha's, I believe, once you made your Mystic Arcanum choice, you were locked into it. And there were wildly different levels of power between the choices you could make with your Mystic Arcanum. So, yeah, looking at it, most of these features revolve around the Eldritch Invocation. Contact Patron, it allows you to contact directly with Contact Out Other Plane. So with this feature, you can cast the spell without expending a spell slot, and you automatically succeed on the spell's save. But you can only do it once per long rest. So it's nice to see that Wizards knows that, or the design team knows, that like contacting the patron is a key part of a lot of Warlock stories. So the mechanical support for it is now officially in the class description. So, all right, Hexmaster, you can cast Hex without expending a spell slot. That's cool, I guess. You can't concentrate, but you can cast it. All right. So, I guess that's good for if you don't want to blow a spell slot, but you're in kind of like a minor encounter. It gives you a little bit of a damage bump where you can just cast Hex for free and I started blasting. All I can say is that's at 18th level. Guess what the Sorcerer is doing at 18th level? It's casting Wish for free. Well, not for free, but yeah, it gets this like really flexible, powerful option. So I don't know. All right, let's take a look at the design notes for the updates. So, Beguiling Influence has been replaced by Lessons of the First Ones, which can be used to take the skilled feat. Okay. Bewitching Whispers has been replaced by Mystic Arcanum. Okay. I don't remember what Bewitching Whispers did. Book of Ancient Secrets has been absorbed by Book of Shadows and the Warlock's new spellcasting feature. Chains of Carcery has been replaced by Mystic Arcanum. Dreadful Word has been replaced by Mystic Arcanum. Eyes of the Runekeeper now clarifies it doesn't decode secret messages. Favor of the Chainmaster is enhances Pact of the Chain. Gaze of Two Minds is a bonus action rather than an action. It no longer applies the blinded and deafened conditions to you, and it allows you to cast spells from your space or the other creature's space, and it also requires 5th level. Gift of the Protectors has been imported from Tasha's. Hexer enhances Hex. Lessons of the First One allows the Warlock to dabble in different areas. Okay. Life Drinker now requires 9th level rather than 12th. It deals 1d6 extra damage and it heals you. Minions of Chaos and Mire of the Mind are replaced by Mystic Arcanum. Mystic Arcanum is now an invocation. Repelling Blast now works on creatures that are large or smaller, so there's finally some kind of limit on it. Sculptor of Flesh has been replaced. There's been a bunch of them replaced by Mystic Arcanum. Thirsting Blade has been absorbed. Voice of the Chainmaster has been absorbed. Witch Sight now gives you True Sight. Alright, so first, Agonizing Blast. Makes sense. Armor of Shadows. I actually use it on a current build with a Abjuration Wizard. Ascendant Step, cast Levitate on yourself. Beast Speech, you speak with animals. Devil Sight, good old Devil Sight. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical. Which I do think is different. I think it used to only be that you could... Devil's Sight, 5e. There was something in there about Devil's Sight not really working for perception checks or something. It hasn't changed at all. I don't know. Eldritch Sight. You can cast Detect Magic. Eldritch Spear. Bigger range. Eyes of the Runekeeper, like they said, doesn't decode secret messages. Favor of the Chainmaster. So this is 9th level, and you have to have Pact of the Chain. Your bond with the familiar summoned by your packed familiar spell grows more powerful. Whenever the familiar hits, the target experiences the following effect associated with the familiar's creature type. So if it's an aberration, it's slowed by 15 feet, and it can't dash or disengage. That can be kind of cool. Celestial has a guiding light, so the next attack roll against the target... Oh, it's like fairy firing it. That's pretty neat. Draconic Might, if the target is medium, it's knocked prone. Beguiling Sting, it has the charmed condition. Unearthly Toxin, you can poison them. Or Whispers of the Grave, they can be frightened. Okay, that's neat. Not really sure that as a 9th level warlock, it's one of the ones I'd want to go with, but especially if I have a bunch of things, maybe. You know, it's kind of neat to be able to inflict more conditions, but I don't know. So Gaze of Two Minds. As a bonus action, you touch a willing humanoid and perceive through its senses until the end of your next turn. As long as the creature is on the same plane as existence, you can use a bonus action on subsequent turns to maintain concentration. While perceiving through the other creature's senses, you benefit from any special senses possessed by it. And you can cast spells as if you were in your space and the other creature's space. What's cool about that is you can cast spells through that creature. So I could definitely see, you're the warlock. Bonus action, touch the rogue. The rogue dashes, into range. The warlock does a huge warlock spell. Boom. Like, especially if you have like a speed-based character that is all about movement, that opens up some real interesting team synergy. So, yeah, I'm about it. Bum ba bum. Oh, a little choppy on the internet connection. Well, hopefully it doesn't get too bad. Gift of the Protectors. So this is Pact of the Tome. With your permission, a creature can use its action to write its name on that page, which can contain a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus. When any creature whose name is on the page is reduced to 0, the creature magically drops to 1 hit point instead. Once the magic is triggered, it no longer can benefit from it until you finish. It's like an anti-death note. It's like a life note. Okay, when you cast Hex, its range is 600 feet, and you have advantage on Constitution saves used to maintain concentration. Awesome. I think they're really overestimating the usefulness of Hex. Lessons of the first one, allowing you to gain 1 feat of your choice, such a skill that is available to first level characters. Oh, bonus first level feat. That's kind of cool. Yeah. All right. Life Drinker is an extra d6 necrotic damage. The first time you deal necrotic damage with this invocation on each turn, you regain a number of hit points equal to the necrotic damage. Oh, but it can trigger multiple times. That's not bad. So Misty Visions. A lot of these are the same. Okay. Mystic Arcanum. Your explorations of the arcane have unlocked magic within you. Choose a spell from the arcane spell list. Oh wait, is this an arcane caster? I'm pretty sure it is, but let's go back to spell casting. Yeah, this is an arcane caster. There's a lot of arcane stuff you can do with it. It's from the arcane list. Yeah, okay. Let's go back to Mystic Arcana. So, look for your Warlock level on the table to see the max level you can have. So you can cast the chosen spell once without expending a spell slot. You can do this Why would you... Alright, I guess the other ones are like, you can do it without using a spell slot, and you can do it multiple times. So I guess this is like, you can do it once. You can take this invocation more than once. So it's almost like Pathfinder preparing, where you're preparing individual castings of the of this Mystic Arcanum. But yeah, now, alright, this is definitely a better way of handling Mystic Arcanum, and it does allow you to feel like a full caster, even though the chassis is only half casters. So one with the shadows. It's very similar to the epic boon with like the Night Spirit or whatever. Otherworldly Leap. Repelling Blast. Yeah. Cool. Oh, I wonder if Simon from the new movie was actually a warlock. With this whole, you can cast Speak with Dead without expending a spell slot. Alright, which site? You just get True Sight. Cool. Alright. Before going into Fiend Patron, I'm feeling pretty positive about this Warlock redesign. I think it's going to be significantly more powerful now that it gets the whole arcane spell list. But in terms of people feeling comfortable playing a full Warlock at my table, especially now that Eldritch Blast grows, it scales with Warlock level, this is a much better design. I'm far more comfortable with it. Alright, so now we're looking at the Fiend. So this was one that really, this is a thing that stood out to me. Patron spells, I think Warlocks were the only ones that had this expanded spell list where it didn't actually increase the number of spells they could prepare or know. It just gave you more options. Like, now they're like, alright, like clerics and paladins, you just get these extra options. Once per long rest, you can cast one of these spells without a spell slot. The list of spells has also been updated. Yeah, so Dark One's Blessing. So this has been rebalanced. So anytime an enemy within 5 feet of you drops to 0, it triggers, but you don't have to be the one to take it out. So it just kind of changes like how that one works. And I think it works now better that you can be it's easier to be a Pact of the Blade with Charisma as your main modifier, or Wisdom actually. Like Pact of the Blade Fiend Warlock. But yeah, Dark One's Own Luck can now be used a number of times equal to your spellcasting modifier. Fiendish Resilience is no longer bypassed by magic or silvered weapons, which monsters almost never possess. And then Hurl Through Hell can be used again with a spell slot of 4th level. The feature now also includes a saving throw, which that was always one of the funniest parts. Is the one time I got to see that feature used, it just like, nope, you take the 10d10 psychic damage. Also, I think it's funny, 10d10 psychic damage is equal to a 4th level spell slot. Okay, patron spells. Just more than 8d8 cold damage, which is cold, but I guess it's only one target. So yeah, looking at the Fiend spells, these all make sense. Burning Hands, Command, Scorching Ray, Suggestion, Fear, Stinking Cloud, Blight, Wall of Fire, Flame Strike, Insect Plague. I think those are all thematic. Some of them are more useful than others, but I think that, especially since they're just additional spells, the subclass definitely has a much clearer play style that they're designing toward. And then Dark One's Blessing gives you temp HP equal to your spellcasting ability plus Warlock level. So Dark One's Own Luck, you can call on your patron to alter fate, make an ability check, or when you make an ability check or save, you can add a d10 after seeing the initial roll, but before the roll's effects. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your spellcasting ability and regain all uses when you finish a long rest. Channeling the preternatural resilience of fiends. You can choose one damage type other than force whenever you finish a short or long rest. You gain resistance to that damage type. Cool. And then hurl through hell. When you hit a creature with an attack, you can use this feature to instantly transport them through the lower planes. Oh, so you do have to hit them first with like an Eldritch Blast. Although you've got 3 Eldritch Blasts at this point. At the end of your next turn, the target returns to the space it previously occupied. If the target is not a fiend, it must make a wisdom save and take 10d10 psychic damage and half on a success. And you can do it again with a 4th level spell slot. And you can only use the feature once per turn, though. So you can't just Nova, like, boom, 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 3 different targets in a room at 14th level. So, how do I feel about Warlock? Thumbs up. Alright, so last... what's it called? Last class is the Wizard. So I do think once I get to the rules glossary, I'm not going to comb through everything. I'm just going to see what they updated. But with the Wizard, the one class that probably doesn't need a lot of updating. Oh, your book can be a spellcasting focus. That's good. The writing spells down is now in the Scribe spell. Academic is a new 2nd level feature. Arcane Recovery has been moved from 1st to 2nd level. Memorize spell is the 5th level feature. Modify and Create, which are the 3 that we talked about with the actual spell list. Signature spell has been moved down to 18th level. So not too much has changed, I don't think. Do they have... Oh, and look, they have a column for the number of spells they can prepare. I'm into it. So, spell casting, spell slots, changing prepared spells, wizard spells. So it gives rules for what your spell book is. So your spell book contains the spells you know. It starts with Scribe spell and 6 other spells. Instead of choosing spells, you can have your book contain those are the defaults. On your adventures, you may find other spells you can use with the Scribe spell. Whenever you gain a wizard level after 1st, you add 2 arcane spells of your choice to your spell book. But again, the preparing part, there's like a certain number that you can prepare. Ritual caster. You can cast any spell as a ritual if that spell has the ritual tag and the spell is in your spell book. You needn't have the spell prepared, but you must read from the book to cast a spell in this way. Cool. Alright. Yeah, just wizard. Academic. When you take the study action, you have advantage on intelligence checks. Ugh, I don't like how study is an action. Alright, Arcane Recovery is, I'm pretty sure, just Arcane Recovery. And then we already actually kind of discussed the new features when we discussed these spells. Spell Mastery is choose a 1st and a 2nd level spell in your book, and you can cast them at the lowest level without expending a spell slot when you have them prepared. If you want to cast either spell at a higher level, you must expend a spell slot as normal. 1st level spell, Shield. Just gonna cast Shield over and over again. And then signature spell, I think, is the same as it always was. Cool. So Evoker is formerly the School of Evocation. I thought it was unnecessary to have a subclass for every wizard school. But having a new naming convention, I think that this is appropriate. So Evocation Savant now also adds 2 evocation spells to your spellbook, which I think makes sense. And Potent Cantrip also works with cantrip attacks, not just saving throws. So Evocation Savant, choose 2 evocation spells, each of which must be no higher than 2nd level. So yeah, Wizard, I don't think needed a lot of adjusting. It looks like they didn't do a lot of adjusting. So I think I'm fine with it. All right, what are the changes to the rules glossary? So death saving throws replaces the dying condition. Influence and true sight. All right, and they removed the dying condition. All right, that's interesting. So let's go to death saving throws first. On your third successful death save, you regain a hit point, but you are unconscious and start a short rest. You remain unconscious until you regain more hit points or until another creature uses an action to administer first aid on you. Which requires a DC 10 wisdom check, medicine check. This playtest rule removes the notion of being stable at 0 hit points, and it removes the stabilizing a creature roll on page 197. I do think that this is clearer than the dying condition. Influence is the other thing that we need to check. So you can try to influence a creature to do one thing that you request or demand. The DM determines when this action is available, and it can be used only on creatures controlled by the DM. It isn't mind control. It can't force a creature to do something. I do like that they keep revisiting the influence action. And I don't know. I think it's getting a little bit better each time, personally. And then the last thing is true sight. That's the last thing they changed. Okay. So a creature can see in normal and magical darkness. The creature can see creatures that have the invisible condition and objects that are obscured by magic. Visual illusions appear transparent to that creature, and the creature automatically succeeds on saving throws against them. The creature discerns the true form of any creature or object it sees that has been transformed. The creature can see into the ethereal plane. Cool. All right. So yeah. Well, thank you for joining me on today's rules analysis, everyone. What are your thoughts on this new Unearthed Arcana? Do you like the changes that they've made to Fighter and Barbarian and the new weapon mastery system? What do you think about Warlocks being able to choose their, kind of uniquely being able to choose their spellcasting ability? And do you think that any of the things you saw that may potentially be overpowered are unhealthy for the game? Let me know in the comments down below. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me. And have a good one. Bye-bye now.